Emma J. is the one who knows about it, and she's going to tell us about it. So give her a warm welcome and your attention.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to see me this morning. I frankly haven't thought deeply about my experiences working for and participating in Burning Man, because the last time I attended an event was 21 years ago. So it's been a long time, but not a lot has changed about Burning Man. I just want to say thank you to Catherine Joy, who I briefly mentioned an experience at flower arranging, and she said, oh, we need to have you talk about that. It's not something I would have come up with to share with you, but I'm delighted and really honored to be a non-resident Saturday Matters lecturer. Okay, so Burning Man. Who here is familiar in any way with the Burning Man project? Oh my gosh, wow, that's fantastic. All right, so what you're seeing here is an aerial image of Black Rock City, which is the physical manifestation of the Burning Man project. This is in the Black Rock Desert of northwestern Nevada, and we're gonna learn more about that. But I always like to start with this image because this is not some haphazard hippie fest in the desert. It is quite the opposite. As you can see, there is a very distinctive design to the city, and those streets are surveyed with flags from the very beginning. We start with a clear, blank, prehistoric lake bed, and we start with a survey flag in the center, and from there, everything is surveyed and a city is built and ultimately enjoyed and then cleaned up. So let's get going. What is Burning Man? It is more than an event. It is a temporary city and a cultural experiment. Black Rock City rises each year on Nevada's Black Rock Desert and disappears after the gathering. It is the largest Leave No Trace event in the world. Tens of thousands of participants build camps, art installations, infrastructure, and community together. The culture emphasizes participation, creativity, gifting, self-reliance, and leaving no trace. Burning Man describes itself as a global cultural movement, not simply a festival. I want to just begin by showing a video to give you kind of just an impression of what it's like. It's very hard to describe.
It's been called a social experiment, post-apocalyptic training. Some call it home. A temporary city emerges in the desert, once each year. No status, no government, no currency. A society focused on the individual. 1 week of celebrating unity, expression, and collaboration. One by one, they arrive into dust storms and scorching heat. The city has been constructed and dismantled by its attendees over 30 times. By the end, art and buildings will be burnt to ashes. No trace will be left until next year, where it will be rebuilt again. A community eager to reconnect, to explore, to build what their imaginations can conceive. And share what makes them unique. This experiment isn't about discovering a supreme being. It's about discovering what's supreme in ourselves. A recalibration of the spirit. A reminder to step outside our bubbles, put down our screens, and rediscover ourselves above the noise. To surrender, let go, and co-create a world together. This city is a labor of love. Thousands of people working together to build a world that's meaningful. One that creates unity. A reminder that we are all interconnected. We begin to realize this isn't about you or me. It's about us and what we create together. And when we work together in a tribe, combining our energies, something becomes awakened in us. The ego begins to fade. The self becomes dedicated to something beyond you, that's greater than you. No inhibitions, no judgment, no boundaries. A pilgrimage to disconnect, to look inward, and to explore the self.
All right. So, some powerful images, quite a surreal world. I just want to provide a brief history. In 1986, the beginning, Larry Harvey, the founder of Burning Man, and Jerry James built an 8-foot wooden figure and burned it on San Francisco's Baker Beach during the summer solstice. About 35 people attended that burn. From 1987 to 1989, rapid growth. So the man himself, the statue, grew taller, and the gathering attracted increasingly large crowds. By 1989, Burning Man had become associated with San Francisco's Cacophony Society, a countercultural group of artists, musicians, and wayward boys and girls, bringing in people beyond Harvey's original circle. In 1990, they were forced to move. San Francisco Park Police intervened because organizers lacked permission to conduct the burn. The man was ultimately taken to Nevada's Black Rock Desert, where the first Black Rock City gathering took place. From 1991 to 95, becoming a city, the desert gathering grew rapidly, developing camps, art, performances, infrastructure, and a recognizable temporary community. Attendance increased from a few hundred to thousands, creating growing organizational and logistical challenges. 1996 was a turning point, a series of tragedies in the unmitigated city with no fences, no tickets, no cost. The desert gathering grew rapidly. Attendance reached about 8,000 people, and the event's infrastructure was becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Organizers began formalizing leadership and operations as Burning Man evolved from an informal gathering into a complex temporary city, which at the height of its population for 10 days in the end of August, early September, becomes the 5th largest city in Nevada. Here is an image of the first burn. They are bringing pieces of the effigy to be burned there onto Baker Beach in San Francisco. So in 1997, they had another relocation challenge. A permit problem forced Burning Man to move temporarily to the Hualapai Playa or the Fly Ranch area, so off of the main prehistoric lake bed. The move brought new permitting requirements and demonstrated how dependent the event had become on relationships with government agencies and land managers. So they actually lease this land and have a permit from the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. In the late 1990s through the early 2000s, which was when I was involved, my first experience was in 2003, Burning Man developed increasingly sophisticated infrastructure, formal organizations, and systems for managing art, camps, volunteers, safety, transportation, and environmental cleanup. This growth created an ongoing tension between its counterculture roots and increasing bureaucracy. So the year after I participated for the first time, the founder, Larry Harvey, a very bizarre and interesting character who I had the good fortune of sitting down and interviewing, he articulated the 10 principles, including radical inclusion, gifting, decommodification, radical self-reliance, participation, and leaving no trace. The principles became an important framework for maintaining Burning Man's culture as the event expanded. So these are the 10 principles on which this event functions. And radical inclusion, everyone's invited, we do not exclude anyone, and this is for everyone. Decommodification, there is nothing for sale at Burning Man. There is no money exchange. Everyone is expected to bring the entirety of what they need to survive and thrive in this bizarre, challenging environment. Radical self-expression, civic responsibility. We run this city, we build this city, we take care of this city, we clean up this city, we take care of others. Participation, one of the mottos of Burning Man is no spectators. Everyone's a participant at Burning Man. They function with a gifting economy. So even though money is not being exchanged, goods are being shared, not exchanged, because it's not bartering, it's not trading, it is gifting. An example would be walking down a street in Black Rock City and someone comes up to you with a plate of cold, fresh peaches. And you're sweating and you're hot and it's 100 degrees, you're dusty, and without expectation, you're indulging in an ice cold, delicious peach. That's just a little example. Radical self-reliance. So again, like I said, you are bringing 1.5 gallons of water per day per person. You are bringing all of your equipment, gear, shelter, food. The only items for sale are ice, to keep those coolers full, and the money, the proceeds from that go to the local economy of the tiny desert town of Gerlach, Nevada. And you can also buy coffee, which is hilarious, but there's something called Center Camp, which is a coffee shop run by volunteers. Again, the proceeds go to a local charity, but they have that to have a central community where workshops, performances, art, things are happening constantly around that central coffee shop. Communal effort. We all work for the success of this event. Leaving no trace, absolutely. Without this principle, Burning Man would not exist today. and immediacy. So focused on what's right in front of you, the present moment, in the words of Ram Dass, be here now. So how was I involved? Why am I talking about this? Well, at the sweet age of 19, I was a junior at New College of Florida, the honors college of the state, where I was included in a wonderful community of 600 students, and we were all required to write a thesis that we took over a year to research and write. So which still makes me giggle, I received grant funding to engage in participant observational research for my undergraduate anthropology thesis. I volunteered with the DPW, the Department of Public Works, which is the crew that builds, participates, and cleans up Burning Man. So this is like the heart that makes it happen. So I spent 1.5 months building Black Rock City with a motley crew of approximately 80 individuals from all walks of life. I participated in my first Burning Man event. Unfortunately, I had to return to school at the end of the event, so I was not able to stay for the 2 months of cleanup that happens after the event. I wrote a 300-page ethnography that I defended at my baccalaureate exam in front of Dr. Uzi Baram, Dr. Maria Vespiri, and my all-time favorite, Dr. David Brain. We just called him David, or we just called him Dr. Brain for short. And my professors loved it. I knew at the age of 19 in my junior year, I was feeling pretty melancholy about being in school. I was feeling eager to get out. And I knew if I wrote what I call a library thesis, where I was just studying, researching, using other people's information, I would perish, right? Or just maybe not graduate. So I decided to do something wildly different. So I was 20 years old when I was first involved, and then in 2005, I attended just the event as a participant, which was a great experience. And then in 2008, particularly, this might be my favorite time, but after the event I did not participate in, I traveled to Gerlach, Nevada, connected with the Department of Public Works, and I was able to stay for 2 weeks of cleanup because I wanted to see the full life cycle, and that was absolutely fantastic. I also came up with a creative project to present to the DPW because, you know, to lift morale. They called me like the USO flying in because the troops were weary and I came in and entertained them, so it was a lot of fun. So this is the bus that I drove at the age of 20. I drove this VW 1976 VW camper bus all the way down to Gerlach, Nevada from Bellingham, Washington, all on my own. This is just an image of driving to the location of the desert. And there I am, look at her at 20 years old. Look at that jawline. Oh, I miss it. So that is the logo of the Department of Public Works. It is the Burning Man effigy holding electrical lightning bolts, and they are the grunts of Burning Man. This is myself in a burlesque outfit, but this is an important picture because this is Marion Goodell, who is the current CEO of Burning Man. She was one of the original founders, and she's been with the organization since the early 90s. She is still the CEO today, and actually HBO just produced a 4-part docuseries focusing on Burning Man, the history, the challenges, etc. She features in it. I thought she would be painted as the villain, but she actually wasn't. I felt an incredible amount of sympathy for her by the end of the series, and if this interests you, you should watch it. This is just some examples of the work crew. We're fixing a truck here together. This is just an example of an unusual vehicle that we used in our daily work, this stretch Cadillac limo painted with skulls and crossbones. All right, these are just images of our work camps where we lived. Yes, very bare bones. So something that made it really special to work out there is that there are numerous hot springs. So I can't remember having this much energy, but we would wake up at dawn, we would go to the commissary tent, eat a good meal, we would have our morning meeting with the chief of the DPW giving us the rah-rah and the goals for the day, and we would do manual labor from morning until sunset. But then we would drive 100 miles an hour across the empty playa. There's nothing on it. We would drive 100 miles per hour to hot springs, and we would soak all evening and tell stories. It was just one of the best times of my life. So this is not a music festival. This is an arts festival and a cultural experiment. So we have art on the playa that is built by participants, okay? The man and the temple, which I'll teach you more about later, that is created by the organization itself. However, all the other large-scale art is perhaps funded by Burning Man through a grant system, but these are participants creating this. So huge, interactive, temporary, and often participant created. Participants create sculptures, installations, interactive experiences, and mutant vehicles. Art is not simply something to look at. Visitors are encouraged to touch, explore, contribute, and participate. Many works are intentionally temporary, reinforcing the idea that experiences can matter even when they don't last. Definitely a heavy focus on impermanence at this festival. One of my favorite sculptures of all time at Burning Man, I can't remember its title, but two adults in distress with their children trying to connect with each other. A warthog that you can climb over made of metal. And one of the, what do you do when you're at Burning Man? Well, during the day, a lot of napping, a lot of siestaing, because it's very hot. But what you would do is you would get on your bicycle, which is the ideal mode of transportation in Burning Man, and you would simply go off without a plan, okay? And you would come across, out of the empty desert, a warthog. Would you ever have imagined to see that? No. So it's a surprise and delight around every corner. A lot of flaming art, a lot of propane use at Burning Man. So this is a moving art car that also shoots 8 flames. This is one of the temples. A temple is erected every year, and the temple is one of the more spiritual elements of Burning Man. The temple is a place to go to grieve. The temple is a place to go to let go. So people will go to the temple. It's probably the most solemn, quiet experience you can have there. And people leave mementos, photos, notes. People write on pieces of wood to people they've lost, to parts of themselves they want to lose, to parts of themselves they want to embrace. And it will be filled with people and meaningful mementos. And the man burns on the Saturday night at the end of the 10-day festival, and then on Sunday, the temple burns. And the difference between those two is palpable. Burn night, people are going wild. I mean, it is just feral, primal, tribal celebration of flame and chaos. And the temple burn the next day is silent. You could hear a pin drop. People do not applaud and cheer and yell. It is sanctimonious. The couple burning. One note I want to make is a Leave No Trace event, they take that incredibly seriously. So when they burn things, the entire playa underneath the sculpture and extending out is covered in sheet metal to protect the playa so it is not scarred by the burn, which I just think really illustrates their commitment to leave no trace. So even the fires, we are not leaving embers, coal, black marks. So the two iconic symbols of the Black Rock City experience, we have the man, and he is the event's central symbol and is burned near the end of the gathering. That image atop that almost Aztec Mayan influenced temple structure, that was actually from the year that I participated in 2003. And there too, you can see the temple offers a quieter, reflective space for remembrance, messages, and personal rituals. So life in Black Rock City, a city built by the people who attend. Theme camps create hospitality, workshops, performances, games, and other interactive experiences. You have everything from a kids camp to Alcoholics Anonymous camp, to you have meetings on the playa, you have fruit camps that just dress as fruit and give out fruit. You have all kinds of theme camps. I'll show you a few examples, but they are what brings the experience. If they weren't there, there would be nothing to see. Mutant vehicles, which we'll look at, transform transportation into mobile art and gathering spaces. Participants, like I said, they bring their own food, water, shelter, supplies. Radical self-reliance is essential. And no conventional vendors, no advertising as well. So if you were to bring a U-Haul truck, you are directed to get water and roll a paint roller in the playa dust and paint over the advertising on the truck, which you can then wash off later. But they do not allow any advertising. So no logos, no free handouts of Red Bull or whatever. No advertising. And again, just ice and coffee for sale. So this is an example of a theme camp. This one is a sideshow theme camp. So you may stumble upon this and they're going to have circus performances inside. Perhaps, modern freaks, like we would see the tattooed or the bearded lady, or, so this is just one example of something you might come upon. One of my favorites, this was out there when I was there. Now you might think, isn't this advertising? No. They do love tweaking common things in the modern or the default world. And this one is called Costco, Soulmate Trading Company. Over 1 million sold since 1998. And so this was out there when I was out there, and that was before things like dating apps or algorithms or computer programs to match people's interests. And so you would go to this camp and you would fill out a single sheet of paper answering, your name, your age, your preferences, your interests, your hobbies, what you're looking for. And they would manually go through them and make matches of people at Burning Man. And then they would give you your match and you would go and find them and see if you hit it off. So it was like, what a funny idea. So they're still out there matching soulmates. And I may mention that a lot of people fall in love at Burning Man, and a lot of people return to get married at Burning Man. So I think Costco has been very successful. This is another example of a theme camp. This is Never Never Camp. And just a huge group of people coming together to create a camp to delight others. So this is really, and if you can see in that bottom corner here, this says Goose Body Shops, meaning this is a luge built that you can pour alcohol in and then drink it off the goose's back. Very bizarre. Who would have thought of that? Not me. All right, we're getting into some of my favorites now. These are the mutant vehicles, otherwise known as art cars. And these are some of the most magical things out there because at night, You might be walking and feeling a little tired, and all of a sudden, a trumpet emerges from the dark, and people atop wave to you and say, come aboard the trumpet car. And so you might get on and not know where you're going, but you just ride along and you're promised to experience something interesting. This is very special to me. This is called the La Contessa, which was an authentic replication of a Spanish ship. And it was fully real wood, real rigging. I mean, it was so authentic. And I remember at early burn, which is basically the staff party with family and friends 2 weeks before the event itself, I rode atop the La Contessa through the empty desert, drinking absinthe out of an Nalgene bottle that someone had homemade and brought to share with me. So it was a very memorable experience. Who doesn't love a bed? So you could, you need to rest. Why don't you get atop the moving bed and take a look around the city? You cannot imagine the creativity of different vehicles in Black Rock City. It truly is just a surprise and delight around every corner. So this couple obviously created this metalworking, and just so much fun. A lot of parasols because it's obviously very hot and sunny. I don't know how I survived with my paleness, to be honest. We have to talk about fashion. There is a very specific look to people at Burning Man. It is so hot during the day, so dusty, often so windy. You are dealing with dust storms actively, at least once a day, if not all day. People wear masks, respirators to survive the dust. Most everyone wears goggles to protect their eyes from the dust. This couple also is wearing warmer clothes because it is the high desert, so it gets very cold. Temperatures drop extremely rapidly after the sun goes down, so you do see people wearing big faux fur coats, and then these guys really are just radical self-expression. There it is. Now, as a DPW member, I would give these guys guff because we did not allow feathers at Burning Man because they would fall off and create garbage. So we discouraged people from glitter and feathers because those things never stay attached. This is a very classic Burning Man look, a faux fur covered bicycle with kind of a metal influence. She looks like she's having the time of her life. This is a classic example. This is very what we would call steampunk, kind of incorporating the Victorian era with modern industrial kind of music culture. So this is pretty classic. He's got his mug attached to his belt, probably a water bottle with him. But you can see the dust rising up behind him. Party couple, just loving life on the playa. This is an opportunity to express yourself in any way you see fit. I remember wearing a thrift store wedding dress one night out on the playa, just running around amok in someone else's wedding dress. We have another video. This is so important. I want to show you Burning Man at night because it changes drastically. And I would say Burning Man thrives at night. It's the more active time because it's cooler. So let's take a look. Okay, so what does leave no trace mean? So the desert becomes a temporary city and then must become a desert again. So participants are responsible for taking out what they bring in. Do they do that all the time? No, I will show you some of those pictures as well. But that's why the DPW exists, clean up after the folks that don't. Cleanup is a core cultural principle and practice, not an afterthought. The goal is to leave Black Rock Desert as clean or cleaner than it was found. The principle connects environmental stewardship with communal responsibility. And again, the largest leave no trace in the world. And I realize I failed to mention, we have an acronym, which is MOOP, M-O-O-P, MOOP, and that means matter out of place. So if you see a pistachio shell on the ground, that is MOOP, okay? You see a bicycle that someone abandoned when they drove back to New York, MOOP, okay? So we are anti-MOOP. This is the exit line for Burning Man. It takes hours to get out of Burning Man because everyone wants to leave at once. So you might be in your vehicle for 10 hours trying to leave. Look at this. We've got trash. People leave trash because, of course, with our principles and practices, not everyone will ascribe or feel the same sense of civic responsibility. So how does DPW clean up this massive event? The rule of thumb for line sweeps, so I would call it the zombie walk. Oh, hold on. I just want to pause that. I don't know if it'll pause. Okay. Well, essentially, oh my gosh, I don't know how to pause it. Okay. Essentially, you would line up, put your arms out to space yourselves, and then you would walk looking down with your picker-upper and your bucket, and you are picking up every pistachio shell, every cigarette butt, every piece of glitter, every corner of toilet paper that might be there. You would be shocked, the things that you find. Sometimes we'd find cool things and we call it a ground score. But this is the DPW doing these line walks to eliminate the MOOP from the playa. So these are images from my time at cleanup. These are members of the Department of Public Works doing those walks. It's an exhausting job. So this is us, some folks resting and taking a siesta during the heat of the day. When the wind picks up, it can create dust dunes on the playa, which is a real challenge during cleanup because we have to essentially take a truck dragging a giant heavy rake or using a bulldozer, but we rake out those dunes to ensure that any MOOP is removed. And this is some of my crewmates that I worked with, quite a motley crew, and I will share, hopefully if we have time, some stories about the people I met. I was on several teams when I worked for Burning Man. My first team assignment, I was in the sign shop, and I was creating the street signs that are on every intersection, every corner of Black Rock City, so you know how to find people. There is a map, there are street names, and so I created the signs in the sign shop. I later became a part of the spire crew, which erects spires at every, basically streetlights that are lit by lanterns every night in a ceremony by the lamplighters. So I was erecting spires. So the sign shop, the spire crew, and then one of my favorites, you may know I'm a cyclist, but I was on the bicycle recovery crew. And after Burning Man, people leave thousands of bicycles on the playa, right? Because they bought them for cheap and they're going back to Idaho and they don't want to carry it back, right? So people leave thousands of bicycles. So my job with my team was to collect all the bicycles, determine what was usable, what was not, and we would load them up in semi-truck trailers. And we would deliver them to Reno, which is about 3.5 hours away, and to the Reno Bike Project. They would fix them up and then resell them to burners the next year to come out. So it's kind of a sustainable system, to be frank. And then you'll notice a lot of green bicycles in these images, and the green bicycles are actually a community service offered by the organization where they just put a bunch of green bicycles out and they're just free use, kind of like the Lime bikes here, but there's no cost. This is what's called the trash fence. When I was there, we built, I believe, almost 10 miles of trash fence around the entire event, and the goal of it is to catch any flying debris during the wind. What I found fascinating is that my crew in 2003, we were hand installing all of these pieces of tea stakes, so the metal. So heavy tea stake pounder, right? You throw it over the piece of metal, and it is it is a serious physical exertion, and we hand pounded each of those stakes. That's what we did. I wonder today if they have a pneumatic machine that does that. I kind of hope for their sake they do. This is a shadow of me on the empty playa, so this is what it returns to after the event. I just thought you might enjoy this picture of a dog. This was my friend's dog, and I just thought it was a funny photo. We picked that up too. That's Moop. Poop is Moop. And there is the desert returned to its glory. So the cleanup takes place all of September, all of October. There is a BLM inspection where they choose randomly different quadrants of an area, and BLM will come in, scrape the area, look through the area, collect any moop that remains, and they essentially measure the moop per area of investigation. And it has to be under a certain level for them to pass the inspection, essentially. So it is very serious, it's done very methodically. So why do people go? This was challenging for me to distill all this information because I wanted to give you an introduction to Burning Man, but I have so much to say about my thesis that I did there, but we just have too little time. But what my thesis investigated was the people that built and cleaned up Burning Man, and they are working, at that point they were volunteers, including myself. They would be fed, You had to bring your own housing, but you are working dusk till dawn in one of the most formidable environments in the world, manual labor, and you think, why are people doing this for free? And I explored a lot of work theory using all sorts of philosophers, and you know, really it came down to the idea of communitas, or community, camaraderie. They come to do this difficult, challenging work in this inhospitable environment because of the feeling of tribalism, of having a place to belong, of being a part of something greater than themselves. And I really found that out there. I found a motley crew of misfits where I felt included and accepted exactly as I am. So people go, the experience means many different things to different people, to make art and share creativity, to experience radical self-expression and freedom from everyday expectations, to build community and meaningful connections, to challenge assumptions about consumption, ownership, and participation, and to experience something temporary, immersive, and difficult to replicate elsewhere. There is nothing else like Burning Man on the planet. This is pretty one of a kind. So I have a lot of challenges and controversies to chat about, but I am running out of time, so I have about 9 minutes left. I will just briefly say, as attendance grew, when I was there, I believe it was about 65,000 attendees. And now I believe it's grown to 85 or 90,000 attendees. So critics question whether Burning Man could remain genuinely countercultural while requiring expensive tickets. I think the tickets to the 10-day festival are probably, I don't even know how much they are, probably over $700 or $800, maybe. I think they were $425 when I went, but I was given a ticket. The demand for tickets has often exceeded supply, a lot of complaints about the ticket systems and the fairness of that. And then a lot of people criticizing because their concept of radical inclusion, well, it excludes people without money or people without a lot of money, right? Because not only are you buying the ticket, but you are creating shelter, food, water for yourself for 10 days and you have to get there. So it's an extraordinarily expensive adventure to have. Environmental contradictions, so leaving no trace, however, they use an enormous amount of fuel, materials, energy. There are the wealthy elite attend Burning Man, absolutely, with private aircraft. They have a fully functioning airport at Burning Man. Generators, large art installations, disposal materials, you know, it's all waste. I'm not going to read through all of this, but they had to cancel during COVID-19 in 2020, as well as in 2021. In 2022, they faced some safety and law enforcement concerns, balancing the personal freedom of Burning Man culture and the need for conventional public safety systems. Because it is a city, it's the 5th largest city in Nevada, there are city problems. Extreme weather crisis in 2023, heavy rain instantly turns the playa into a place where you cannot be mobile. You are stuck. Because if you walk, the mud layers on your shoes and all of a sudden you're wearing 12-inch platforms. If you ride your bike in the wet playa, you are rendered immobile immediately because it cakes onto the tires. You cannot ride a bike. That was very challenging for them. And then the climate change debate, again about the environmental impact. And then in 2023, the leave no trace was really tested. The extreme weather made cleanup extremely difficult, embedding debris in hardened mud and creating ruts across the playa. Despite the challenges, Burning Man reported that the site ultimately passed the Bureau of Land Management's post-event inspection. Ongoing concerns about commercialization against their principle of decommodification. There is a luxury ecosystem now of private aircraft, elaborate camps, expensive accommodations, and high-end experiences that can seem at odds with this anti-commercial philosophy. So we call those plug-and-play camps. So if you're Elon Musk's cousin, you can pay an egregious amount of money to just fly in on your personal plane, have your air-conditioned RV set up, have your meals made for you, have your water provided, and there's a lot of conflict about that. And, you know, the larger story is that Burning Man's history is not a simple story about a festival getting bigger. It's a story about an experiment in community, art, self-expression, and temporary society struggling with the very pressures created by its own success. So today, it is still a gathering with a worldwide cultural footprint. Black Rock City remains the signature annual gathering of the Burning Man Project. There are regional events and communities that extend the culture far beyond Nevada around the world. The movement continues to explore creativity, connection, civic participation, and new forms of community. Black Rock City 2026 is scheduled this month for August 30th through September 7th, so we still have time to plan a University House outing. So that concludes my presentation. We have an opportunity for Q&A. We have just 4 minutes left of our designated time, but if you would like to stick around and do questions and answers, I'm happy to. I am also happy to tell you one of the most bizarre stories of my experiences there if you're interested in sticking around and hearing that.
Was a fascinating. Thank you so much. Comments and questions?
Ron,
Okay.
It looks like a lot of fun and very exciting. I wonder about the central theme. Burning Man. It's not a place that Joan of Arc would want to go, or the Salem witches, because burning people and burning it, that's not funny. Why did you choose, or why is this theme chosen instead of some other central theme?
You know, I think that's a Burning Man question as old as time. And I think they leave it very ambiguous because they want people to instill their own meaning into what it is. I frankly don't know. I think that it really is less about like the gender, it being a man, and more about impermanence. And I think really it's about folks that are non-religious and need a spiritual experience that they can identify with. And to be honest, I'm not sure the man has a particular meaning.
Good question.
Any other?
Tell the story.
Tell the story.
The star experience.
Okay. Kathy?
Wait.
Yeah.
You know, we don't hear all that well sometimes.
Got it. I'm curious, does everybody sleep in their vehicles, or do they have tents, or how does that work?
Great question. A variety of accommodations. Everything from what we call a dirt nap, where you are just in a sleeping bag on the dirt. That's the lowest level of accommodation. There is everything from individual tents, vehicle camping, RVs, motorhomes. There are, you know, for the staff, we often have kind of those prefab little sheds that they might put out there. There is electricity around the whole city to connect with. Theme camps need to essentially provide their own generators, but there is an infrastructure of electricity. So really, and then obviously like giant canvas tents that groups will stay in. So people build structures, they build giant tents, so communal, solo, lots of accommodations, but everyone brings their own.
I'll tell you a story.
Okay,
Well, we got a couple more questions.
Ron and then Al?
wait, please, so we can hear you.
Are you prepared for medical emergencies? Medical emergencies.
Great question. Yes, there are ambulances and medical staff on Playa. There is medic tents. They are able to helicopter evacuate should someone need it. I encourage people that go to pay the really nominal fee for 10 days of helicopter medevac insurance. It's very inexpensive, but very important because medical emergencies do happen. It's also a particularly strenuous environment, so bodies are challenged. And it is important to mention that Reno is over 3.5 hours away, which is the closest hospital. Gerlach, Nevada, the closest town to the event site is, I mean, it's 2 bars and 3 houses. I mean, it is very tiny. So great question. Yeah.
Back to where do people sleep? There were 2 young men, brothers, living next door to us. And one of them married the girl he found sleeping under his trailer at one of these.
At Burning Man. Yes. Okay, oh, yes. Barb.
How's human waste?
Great question. Barb asked, how is human waste dealt with? Great question. There are thousands of porta potties at Burning Man. So the infrastructure the organization provides, they provide thousands of porta potties essentially on every block of the city. Trucks come through and empty them throughout the festival. And, you know, I think people are torn about urinating on the playa. Some people feel like it's okay. Other sticklers feel like that's not leave no trace. So, you know, in that regard, people might just drop trowel.
So, The honey bucket people come in and take it away to where?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I just know they suck it out and make it go somewhere else, so. Yeah.
To what extent is the drug culture involved in Burning Man?
Great question, Trish. A lot. I mean, it is definitely sex, drugs, and rock and roll, for sure. But it really is a city in the sense that everyone is represented. I mean, there are family camps at Burning Man. There are children that have been attending Burning Man their whole childhood. There are sober camps. There are religious camps. There are all kinds of humanity you can find at Burning Man. So I would say that drugs are definitely involved. It's not sanctioned by Burning Man. It is not legal. There is a police presence on the playa, but I would say they are much less concerned with people using drugs than they are about like sexual assault or theft or, just violence of any kind. But definitely a lot of drugs. Oh, more hands after that. I think drugs really got people going. We got more questions now.
Actually, sorry to disappoint, but I was curious about the origin of the name Burning Man. What is that supposed to symbolize?
Great question, Prue. I think it is quite as simple as they built a sculpture of a man and they burned it with no real intention, and it went from there. Impermanence. I really think it's just a symbol of impermanence. And maybe, I kind of view it, in my personal view, as like anti-capitalism and anti-authoritarianism. So that's kind of what it means to me. It's like, don't let the man keep you down, right? And that doesn't mean men, it just means any authority figure or societal expectation that dictates how we should be, right?
Is the space occupied by Burning Man ecologically different because there's massive compaction damage and you can pick up all the trash you want, but is the space different from the surrounding desert?
Wow, great question, May. I am going to say, no, it is not different. They really do return it to its previous place. And the playa is a dynamic and ever-changing environment. So again, like I said, a prehistoric lake bed that runs from mountain to mountain, a huge, immense, massive space. And the wind and the sun and the water, it resets the playa. Basically, it's like an etch-a-sketch. It's like the rain and wind just shakes it right out and returns it to a blank canvas.
I've heard rumors that there's going to be a competing event called Burning Woman.
Well, I'm not gonna buy a ticket to that one.
Okay, I think, and we are over time, but
Yeah.
worth it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, everybody, I appreciate it.
Tell the story.
Okay. The story is not for the faint of heart, okay? Okay, but I will tell you this story. And I hope I'm trying not to be too long-winded. But this is the story that I reflected in my thesis, that when my professors read it, their faces went ashen. And at my baccalaureate exam, they said, Emma J., in all honesty, did that really happen? And I said, it absolutely did. And my thesis sponsor, Dr. Maria Vespiri, was disturbed that she had supported and allowed me to engage in such an experience. So 20-year-old me, probably in a little sundress, I pulled up to the work ranch, which is the staging area for Burning Man that's just about 5 miles off the playa, because our permits start on a specific date. So a lot of the preparation happens on this work ranch. So, I arrived on the work ranch. I am the youngest participant by at least 10 years on this crew of 80 people. I would say out of the 80 people, about 20% were women. So let's just say a 20-year-old young woman driving in a VW bus got a lot of attention. And It was a motley crew of people from all walks of life. So there were LA film producers, there were filmmakers, there were seasonal workers that pick apples and work for Burning Man. There are world travelers from different countries. There are people in the music industry, a lot of roadies, so a motley crew. On one of the first days of being on the work ranch, I had established my camp, just my little VW bus and a yard chair. And one early morning, I was walking to the commissary tent for breakfast. And I noticed a new vehicle had pulled in and was driving slowly. And my friend Metric, who was one of, oh, by the way, we have playa names where people give each other names that are just used at Burning Man. And mine was Thesis, because I was writing a thesis. So they call me Thesis. So I see Metric, who was a manager on the team, and he was a passenger in a car. And I went up to the window and I said, "Good morning, Metric," and he said, "Good morning." And the driver, I noticed, was someone new. He was wearing a safari-style hat. He had one half of a pair of glasses on his face with a half a pencil kind of balancing on his nose with duct tape, okay? He had one arm, which will become relevant later in the story, and he had the deepest Appalachian accent I have ever heard. And he leaned out of the driver's seat and he looked me up, and he looked me down, and he said, my, they sure do grow 'em purty out here in the desert." And I thought, I'm kind of scared. So I went to the commissary and I sat down at an empty table eating my breakfast, and that one-armed gentleman sat directly across from me at the table, which is not unusual, it's a communal space. But he proceeded to tell me about his journey within the last 24 hours of how he arrived at Burning Man. And he was clearly a little unhinged, I will say, which is not unusual for the people that work for Burning Man. But he had a special edge that felt slightly dangerous. And he explained to me in his Appalachian accent and his rambling that he had picked up a hitchhiker on his way to Burning Man with a dog, and that the dog was barking in the back of the car. And he told me that he turned around and he slit the dog's throat. And the owner of the dog hit him over the head with a Maglite flashlight, a big Maglite flashlight. And then this gentleman, well, I'm not gonna say gentleman, this murderer took his hat off and exposed a deep gash in his head, bleeding where he had been hit by this flashlight. And then he said, so we pulled over and I killed that man on the side of Highway 447. And I thought, can I get another cup of coffee? And I thought, well, that's intense. And I think I just politely excused myself. And I immediately went to the director of the DPW, our chief officer, and I said, "Mr. Clean," that's his playa name. I said, "Mr. Clean, I just was given this story by the guy that showed up this morning." And his face dropped and he said, "MJ, he has told that exact story to several other people." And we realized this is real. So we called the sheriff in Reno. It takes them 3.5 hours to get out to the work ranch. So meanwhile, how do you entertain and subdue someone that is clearly very disturbed? And so what do? We got him a beer. We had the medic come and look at his head, take care of his head. He was rambling, but we kept him calm, and he didn't know we called the sheriff. Like, he's clearly not thinking clearly. The sheriff arrived, and they had indeed found the man and his dog dead on the side of Highway 447. So they came to arrest him. How do you arrest a one-armed man? How do you handcuff him? In half the time. Okay, wow, nothing? All right. So long story short, I had breakfast with a man that had murdered a man and his dog within the 10 or 12 hours before he arrived. So that is the story that I told my professors that they did not believe. And I showed them his mugshot, and he was convicted and is still in prison. So that's pretty fascinating. But then to bring some levity, the man crew who built the actual sculpture of the man, he is built piece by piece in San Francisco, and then he is trailered out in pieces to the playa. One morning, a week later, we're on the playa, the man is being erected, and the director of the DPW comes out at the morning meeting and he looks mad at us. And he, through anger and trying to repress laughter, he said, "This isn't funny, guys. Who stole the arm of the man?" So the man building crew had moved one of the man's arms and hidden it in a trailer elsewhere. And so then he had a one-armed Burning Man. And of course, we all had a good laugh about it. You know, you have to make light of darkness, and it's a bizarre situation. And then ultimately on burn night, the man stands like this, and then when it's time to start the burning, his arms lift up in the air like this before he's burned. And that night, once the burning happened, the first thing that happened is one of the arms fell off. And of course, no one there knew except for me and my crew, and we were just losing it. You know, we were losing it. So I hope that wasn't too, I know it was a grotesque story, but it's certainly something I never expected to happen, and I hope never happens again. So there you go. Okay.